Hello and welcome to lesson number 4, where we're going to add in these greenery leaves and flowers into our aisle and our flower stands. This is the bit I love the most, and I think it always kind of brings your illustration together the most. Quite often your flower and greenery arrangements are the kind of focal point of not only the concept but sometimes the budget too. So it's amazing to create these concept illustrations whereby you're communicating with your client maybe kind of restrictions around, if they only have this much budget for this, you can kind of give them a real good indication of what they can have compared to inspiration photos. So this bit is definitely my favorite, and I'm excited to show you how quickly and easily we can bring these flower and greenery arrangements together. In the main course, which launches at the end of March, I'm going to be giving you, as well as the ceremony brush set, which is going to include around 100 outlines of everything to do with the ceremony decor. You're also going to get all of my greenery brushes and as well as my flower brush set. So you won't have to ever draw any of these elements from scratch. They're all dynamic. They've all been created individually, and they're ones I use in my business every day. And you'll easily be able to lay down flowers, change colors, add density, create organic looks. You can do anything with these. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works now. So you can see here in our reference image, this is the design we're going to create. And this is where we left off our illustration last week. So let's start by creating the flowers and greeneries that are going to climb up this front flower stand here. And feel free to keep going back and referencing this image. We can also resize this image and move it off to the side. So for now, let's turn off the back flower stands. We are focusing on these front ones for now. I'm going to select on that layer and add a layer above because I want these greenery leaves to sit in front of the stand for now. Okay, in our brush set, let's select greenery number 1. In our color palette, let's select this dark green color here. Okay, let's select a fairly small size, and you can see as per this front kind of arch here, we're just gonna lay down some leaves around the base here. So just tapping on the screen and letting these leaves kind of organically grow up this stand. And they're gonna kind of intertwine around the back and front of the stand. And this is our very base kind of greenery. We're going to add layers on top of this as well. And then let's have it coming around the front of the top here, like so. Now let's select greenery brush number 2 and our second green color here. And on a layer above the one we've just worked on, reduce that size down, and we're just going to add kind of another layer of leaves, and these ones are slightly more organic. They're kind of growing out, breaking up the edge of this arrangement. And to add a little extra flair, let's actually select another green. Let's do that manually, selecting our disc, and I kind of want kind of brighter lime color. I'm going to stick with using the same greenery leaf. I've got my new layer, and let's just add a few more lighter colors in here. You can see how quickly this builds up and how there's really no limit to kind of how dense you want this, how easy it is to represent what you're trying to communicate. And that is as simple as it is to create the greenery on this one stand. Now let's turn that reference off so I've got some space. Let's group those layers into one. I'm going to duplicate that group and flatten it. And I'm going to flip it and move it over to this other stand. And for this example, I'm going to have them completely symmetrical. And now what I want to do is, using that eraser and that round brush, I'm going to just zoom in, and where I've got my stand kind of behind some of these leaves, I'm just going to go and edit that so that like the stand is sitting in front of some of this greenery, so it looks like it's kind of moving all the way from the front to the back of our stand. And now we're going to go and do the same with those back flower stands. Now you can see as I've turned that layer on, these flower stands at the back of the stage are actually sat in front of our greenery here. And that's because they're on top of those layers. So we actually want that to sit behind. And these flower stands are in front. So select those back flower stands, add a layer, and we just go and do the same again. We'll turn that reference on. We'll select the first greenery brush, the first green here from our colour palette. And let's just start building up these flowers here. And then adding a new layer, select that second greenery brush and that second colour. Start building up the different layers that we'll have running throughout this arrangement. And then one more time using the same brush, and if we select our colour palettes and go into disc, we'll see here this is our history. This is the last 10 colours that you've used, so you can go and find that colour that we added manually to create those brighter green leaves. Okay, I'm happy with that for now. I'm actually going to merge those down. I'm going to take that eraser brush and erase any leaves that I want to sit behind the flower stand. I want this to look like it's spiraling around the back here. And then it comes around the front and then back around the back. Like so. Let's turn off that reference, and then I can duplicate and flip that layer, move it across to the other stand and place it in front of that flower stand. And this is the point when you can come in and tweak any of these layers if you want, or you can just work along into the next section. So I think with these two greenery pieces that are on these back stands, what I'm going to do is select them both, select freeform, just raise them up so that they don't sit kind of exactly as the greenery does on that front layer. Let's just see what it looks like if I reduce those down slightly. Now we're going to stick with the greenery and we're going to create the greenery that sits along the edge of the aisle. So creating a new layer, let's go and select greenery brush number 1, that first colour. Starting from the stage end, I'm just going to come in and create a very loose shape to indicate where these leaves are going to be placed. Building out from the edge of that aisle. And obviously we won't be able to see through these, so you can make that center area a bit darker because we are creating a dense arrangement here. Like that. We create a new layer, select greenery brush number 2 and that second colour. We can make our leaves bigger than they are on the stands because they are closer to kind of the viewpoint. And as they get closer to this area, which is kind of the kind of camera angle, the viewpoint of this concept, the leaves obviously will be getting slightly larger. And then one more time with that lighter green that we can find in our history, using that same brush, let's add that final layer. Just try and kind of imagine this peak, like these leaves as they would be in real life and how they would be arranged. They were having them kind of organically growing out from their base. So try and kind of move your stylus in the direction that these kind of vines would go. And once you're happy with that, you can group those. To save layers, we can flatten it, duplicate and flip it, and we can go and place that on the left hand side. Again, line those blue lines up, place it centrally on that aisle edge, and then we have all of our greenery placed. Now we're going to add in the flowers. So let's go and start back on these flower stands at the front. So you know they're the front ones by toggling on and off. So it's these ones here, and obviously that's the flower stand, that is the greenery, and we want to place flowers on top of the greenery, so we're going to create our layers here. In our brush set, we're going to select flower number 1, and let's go and put in some of these hot pink flowers. So select this first colour, and with a very small size, what we're going to do, kind of referencing our image, is cluster some of these flower colours together. Feel free to amend the sizing. So with these flowers, because they're dynamic, if you've got a stylus that is pressure sensitive, the harder you tap, the bigger they get. So it does add variety to your illustrations by varying the pressure as well as the placement. And we're just going to work up this kind of twisted greenery vine. Feel free to put some of these flowers outside of the greenery, like so. And we're just going to keep building the flowers. You can either do this on the same layer or create new layers, and that way we can go and tweak any of these colors we like at the end. I'm going to stick with the same flower, pick the lighter pink color, and then just start building up where you'd like to place these flowers. I'm going to kind of intertwine them. Again, once you've got a concept for your florals, it's so easy to then go and represent them in an illustration. Obviously here we're just working off a reference image. Let's add a different type of flower in our peach color. Again, adjust the size as you need, and I'm going to add some of these kind of peachy tones into our arrangement. And finally, on a new layer, the buttercream color, stick with the same flower, and I'm going to kind of use this one to add a bit of density to the flowers by filling in some of the gaps in front of the greenery. Now we're going to go do the same on this back flower stand. So find the rear flower stand, find the greenery, add a layer on top, and you're just going to go work through the same thing again. So the first flower with the hot pink, on a new layer, the first flower with the lighter pink, a new layer with flower number 2 and our peach color, and finally flower number 2 in our buttercream, which we're going to use to kind of fill some of these areas to reduce the amount of greenery we're seeing. And then what we're going to do, I'll turn off that reference image. Let's go and group our front and back flowers together, just so we know where they are. Now what I'm going to do is, if I want, say, the buttercream coloured flowers to stand out a little bit more, what I can quickly do is go and duplicate that layer, and I'll merge it down to save layers. I'll do the same on the back flower stand. And here's where you get to like play around. If you wanted the orange ones to be brighter, you can. You can do a test here and see if you like them that bright. You can reduce the opacity of that top layer. This is where we're getting into more advanced kind of techniques that I'll show you in the main course of how to really elevate your illustrations. But what I'm going to do now is just duplicate all those layers just so they're kind of doubly as bright. And once I'm happy with that, what I can do is actually flatten all of those into one. So all of our flowers on the front stand are in one group. All the flowers on our back stand are in one group. And now I can really simply duplicate and move these flowers over to the other stand on the other side. Remember to move the layer above the greenery layer. Flip it and move it. And the last thing we're going to do now is go and do the same with our flowers on our aisle. So we're selecting that first flower and our first hot pink colour. And again, just showing you really quickly here, but you can just tap and place these flowers wherever you like and build this up really quickly, taking the first flower with the second colour, reflecting the floral design that we have on stage, down the aisle, we're going to do the same with those peach flowers. Any mistakes, 2 fingers on the screen is an undo. Let's just kind of cluster some of these colours together so they're slightly more dense in some areas. And then finally, with that second flower and our buttercream colour, let's just go and add these into kind of spaces where we can see more of the greenery, just to make the flowers look more dense. We don't want to see too much greenery. And there you go, there's a very quick floral layout there. And again, just like we did at the top, I'm just going to duplicate those just for ease of showing you how quickly we can change the colours of them. I can group those all together, flatten them, and let's duplicate and flip that whole set there over to the left. And there you go. Now we have our flowers and greenery placed on our stands and down the aisle. And that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed adding those with me. That's probably my favourite part. And next week we're going to work on all the finishing touches of the design. So we are going to add that background. We're going to add just a very simple green block of colour to show that there's grass under the chairs. We're going to add shadows for our florals and greenery. We're going to create a watercolour effect, and I'm going to quickly show you how to add your logo to the illustration.